From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
They call me Ben. We are joined with our super producer, Paul the Predictor Decant. Okay, we got a shrug. We're joined with Paul the Predictor Decant. Most importantly, you are you and you are here, and that makes this stuff they don't want you to know. We predict you will find this episode fascinating.
Oh yeah, we can already tell this is going to be your favorite episode that's come out in a long time. We've already read some of your emails. Mm-hmm. Thank you for those. It's really kind what you said about this episode. Mm-hmm. We look forward to your next ones.
Right, both represented in fiction and in real life. I don't know if we can continue this trope for the whole show, man. What do you think?
No, we're just being silly.
we're just having a goof. Mm-hmm. Do people still say that, having a goof?
Of course.
Great, because if not, we're bringing it back. Mm-hmm. This episode is about somewhat of a meta-conspiracy, a conspiracy about conspiracies, for lack of a better term, or a technique that is attributed to a lot of specific theories. Mm-hmm. And oddly enough, there's a very strong basis in truth in this, which I think surprised both of us.
There is a little bit of truth in a way, but it's, it's one of those things where it's so prevalent, what we're speaking about today. Sure. And let's just say what it is.
Predictive programming.
And it's so prevalent on the internet. When anything occurs, there is so much media that exists and so many things happening that when you find the little connective tissues, there's always that eureka moment, and it just happens all the time now.
Maybe we get into this too with an anecdote. Several years ago, you and I made a video about the Illuminati card game.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And in the Illuminati card game, there are certain cards that people who believe in predictive programming have pointed to as evidence of this practice. I think specifically the Twin Towers. Is that correct?
The Twin Towers was one about a terrorist attack. There were so many, though. Deepwater Horizon from 2010 was one. And again, in that video, I guess, do we want to spoil any of that right now about kind of what we found out about the card game?
Yeah, go ahead, lay it out.
Okay, so there have been so many versions of that card game over the years. The cards have shifted and changed a little bit. The artwork has been altered. Mm-hmm. Exactly what's stated on the cards has been altered. And then when you're online and you have people posting images about, here, look at this card from this game that came out in 90-something, it predicted the World Trade Center because of this card, when in actuality that card was referring to the original World Trade Center bombing, which occurred in the 90s.
Right.
And then, or it was changed now because of other, circumstances, things that actually occurred in the real world after it was put out. It's just interesting how things shift over time. And when it's posted on the internet, it could be from any time throughout the span of the card's history.
Oh, we should also point out that it's a fun game.
It is a really fun game.
I was so happy because you introduced me to it, and I'm going to owe you for that one. Also, I was thinking, should we play that game with you, friends and neighbors, if we ever run into each other in real life? Or, Matt, should you and Paul and Noel and I make a game of our own?
We could. We should make a game of our own. We could live stream it.
Stuff they don't want you to play? I don't know. We'll put a pin in that.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's a great example of an allegation of predictive programming. Mm-hmm. Here's what we mean specifically when we say there's a basis in truth. In decades past, the U.S. government would assemble groups of people to help them predict the direction of future technological breakthroughs. And they consulted scientists and technocrats, but they also asked science fiction writers to join in this think tankery. And several of these writers, it turns out, had already successfully predicted the broad strokes of a certain aspect of technological progress or social changes, and they had depicted these events in works of fiction.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, this is just, it speaks to the human imagination. Mm-hmm. What images and ideas can we conjure in our heads before it becomes reality? And it's really, honestly, it's inspiring. Mm-hmm. And our species' ability to dream beyond the limits of this moment, of what's occurring right now, and things that I can possibly do today to what I could do in the future because of X. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's incredible. That's what separates us. Well, there are a lot of things that separate us, but that's one of the major things that separates us from other mammals.
You're giving me chills. That is inspiring, especially the way you put it there. It is one of the primary separations, but it's not all like angel farts and trumpets in the sky. You know, there's a dark side that people see here. Because for others, this story of sci-fi collaboration is only scratching the surface. It's a relatively benign example of a much more widespread and, according to them, sinister practice. Fringe researchers across the U.S. and the globe believe that nefarious, hidden groups are guiding the public through the use of this predictive programming. So let's look at the facts. When we look at the idea of fiction, whether an Illuminati game or a film depicting actual events in the future, we see two fundamental factors at play immediately.
Yeah, the first is what the creators are trying to do. It's not a secret that people who write screenplays and write books, directors of television and movie, they often are attempting to depict what they think the future is going to look like, what might happen in the future. If you think about 1984, the novel, or Brave New World, these are two cautionary tales, very different from each other and also quite similar. They're meant to educate as much as they're meant to warn and entertain. They function on a whole lot of levels.
Yeah. 1984 is one of those books that, even after having read it multiple times, I still don't know if I would say I'm entertained by it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It definitely errs more on the cautionary tale side, but you're absolutely right. I think that's such a great point. These authors and these creators are not working in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. They are attempting to enact some sort of change in the world, whether it's just making the world one story better or one story richer or whatever we want to say about it.
Or as in the case of a Brave New World, it's the question of, doth thou entertain too much?
Yes. And these authors could also depict something more aspirational, like what the future of humanity could be if we ever, get our collective business together.
You talking about Star Trek?
I'm talking about Star Trek, Matt.
Man, Star Trek TNG was the thing that made me go, okay, we're going to be okay. The future is going to be an amazing place. Can't wait to get there.
Right. It's a post-scarcity economy, right? There's not income inequality, and the species spends its time exploring strange new worlds and attempting to enrich their knowledge of the galaxy and the beautiful universe in which we live. Also having more or less constant war or uneasy truces with various alien empires, probably a story for a different episode. But yeah, Star Trek, aspirational. Imagine what we could be.
Exactly. And then you could even have a holodeck. I mean, come on.
That's what it was for you? A holodeck?
No, it was the big picture stuff.
I hated the holodeck episodes.
Yeah, I always felt like I was getting tricked.
I felt, this is just my opinion, one person's opinion, and I would love to hear everybody else's opinion on this. It felt as if the actors were pushing this on the writers and the producers and saying, well, I've done some Shakespeare before.
You're talking specifically about El Capitan, right?
I don't know. I don't know who it was. I feel like I have suspicions, but I can't pin it on any single actor.
Okay.
And maybe it was just maybe it just felt like a bait and switch.
Well, yeah, I think it's a writing device that the people in the writer's room can go, wow, we've been stuck on this Enterprise for a long time in all these episodes.